Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is my ring light. Ew. So today's video I wanted to talk about my drug abuse story. More so, most of this is in the past tense, so anyone who's clicked on here and is like, oh my god, like Anna's an addict. Anyways, we'll just get into the story. I watched Natalia Taylor's video about her drug addiction story and it was so touching, so humbling. I will put the link in the description below. Even though I'm like so ready to film this and I'm kind of hyped up to film it, there are some parts that are a bit sad or depressing. So I'll just start off like chronologically. What was the first drug I've ever had? It was actually ketamine. Ketamine was before I had weed, before I had any pharmaceutical. I had ketamine. And for those who don't know, it's a horse tranquilizer. It's basically considered, I think it's considered a hard drug. So when I first had it, I went into K-hole, the dissociative. So basically I didn't know who I was, where I was, who I was with, and I was like in and out of consciousness. And I was 16. There were some parts where I was like unconscious and some parts where I was conscious. Parts where I was conscious was vomiting over the balcony and then trying to like get my shit together. And one part where I was conscious, a friend of mine, one of my classmates, was pushing my head down. And basically, yeah, I pretty much woke up with it in my mouth. And another part, I remember vomiting out the window again because there was a window in that room that he took me to. And I'm pretty sure he carried me to that room because I don't remember walking. Actually, when I say I'm pretty sure, I mean I'm 100% sure he carried me into this room. And he was sexually using my body while I was unconscious. First drug experience I ever had, he was only drinking. I was drinking and I was on ketamine. It was the first drug I ever had. And I was in and out of consciousness and I couldn't walk. That's a different story. The specifics of that story will come out another time. After that, I started to abuse benzos. Benzos such as Xanax, Valium, Zopiclone, and I was abusing that a lot. I didn't know how to cope well at all. Then I went on holiday to Australia, and when I came back to Taiwan, this is all based in Taiwan because I went to school there, my parents had found out about the sexual, and they put me into therapy straight away. The day I came back from that holiday, they found out about it and they put me into therapy the next day. So that's a good thing I think my parents did. They listened to me and they put me into therapy straight away. And when I was in therapy, I had a psychiatrist and he prescribed me more benzos. So I abused a bunch of benzos. At first, I was taking them correctly, and then after that, I just started to abuse them. Whenever I would come to see him, I would just take extra. I would tell him that I lost my medication or that it wasn't enough. Like, I would do anything just to try to get more benzos. Then I started smoking weed and I started mixing benzos with weed and alcohol with weed and alcohol with benzos, and alcohol and benzos have put me in many fucking fucked up situations. I'm so glad I've had no issues with benzos being an adult. Only when I was a teenager I fucked up a lot on benzos because I was not aware of, the dangers of benzos and alcohol. Going through depression, wow, why does that make me want to cry? Going through depression, I really wanted to forget everything that happened. I kind of idolized the hallucinations I experienced while on ketamine. Obviously, what happened was so traumatic for me. There was a good, 10-20 minutes before waking up in a room with my legs spread open. There was a few minutes, I don't even know because time did not exist in K-hole. I was experiencing some really cool hallucinations. In one of the hallucinations I had, it was of my dad telling me to do better. I felt like I was going to die. Like when I was in and out of consciousness, I was crying, I was vomiting, I wanted to go home. I was telling them like, call my dad. And I had some really insightful hallucinations or thoughts while I was in K-hole, and I was kind of dreaming about doing that again. I was like, that's so crazy that I had this much, less than this. I had less than this. It was the first drug I ever had, so I had the tiniest amount. I went straight into K-hole, full dissociation of a hole of being purely present. I'm not trying to make it sound like a good drug, but as a teenager, this is something that I was like, I want to get away from life. I want to escape my reality. I don't want to think about school. I don't want to think about my life and all this stuff. And let me just like move on, because like that doesn't make any fucking sense, and I don't want to make this whole thing about my first experience, because I will talk about that in a separate video when I am ready to talk about it, because I'm obviously not. And so I started to experiment with pharmaceuticals, specifically over-the-counter pharmaceuticals, because I didn't need a prescription, I didn't need to see my doctor, so I started experimenting with DXM. And the first time I had DXM, I was with this guy who was much older than me, and I came home from clubbing. Well, I didn't have a place to stay, so he invited me and all my girlfriends to stay at his place while we waited until it was late enough in the day, because it was like 7 a.m. or something. We were like, we can't go home at 7 a.m. Like, our parents are going to know we've been out. So we needed to wait until maybe like 11 a.m. before we started heading home. So he invited us over. My friends all went to sleep in his bed. There was like 5 of us. And he was like, hey, do you want to like do these drugs? And I was like, yeah, like, why not? Like, I was drunk. I just came back from partying. I didn't want the party to end. And he didn't take any. And I took about 8 to 12 of these pills, and I remember being so scared, because I'm like, he's trying to kill me. Like, you can't give me 8 to 12 pills, like, that's dangerous. But with how DXM works, you can take far more than that. And because in Taiwan they sell them pure, there was no issue. A lot of people, or a lot of the foreigners over there, would abuse it, because in Taiwan we pretty much have it good and it's cheap. Pretty much described as ketamine's little brother or something like that. So I started to abuse DXM a lot, because it took me to the same dissociative place as ketamine did. I took it often, I took it every weekend, and it was fucking up with my brain, it was fucking up with my serotonin. I could feel that it was decaying my body, but there was nothing that was going to stop me from escaping my reality. And that's what I want to make very, very clear in this video. I was not addicted to specific drugs. I was addicted to escaping my reality. I did not like the reality I was in. I did not like going to school. I did not like my friends. I did not like my family. I did not like myself, most importantly. So I filled my time with escaping the reality I was in, because I didn't like it. I didn't like myself. I didn't like having thoughts in my head. I just wanted to be away from this. For me, that escape was taking mind-altering substances. And then, you know, experimenting with DXM a lot, I found a friend who provided me with a lot of ketamine. And I started to fill out all my cravings. Ketamine, DXM, weed, benzos, alcohol. It was everything, and I was only 17 years old. That shit already like fucked up my brain. I was already like fucked up in the head. Like, I couldn't, especially DXM fucked up my eyesight. I took so much DXM, like my eyesight has never been the same. Days after being on DXM, I couldn't be out in the sunlight because I couldn't see. They also fucked up my legs. Like, being on so much DXM, like, I couldn't walk. And days after, I would just lie in bed. Like, no wonder I was fucking depressed. I was doing so many drugs, like, I couldn't see. I didn't have any serotonin in my brain. My legs didn't walk. I could feel my body decaying and breaking down on me. And then being hard on myself, being like, what the fuck's wrong with you? Like, why would you do this to your body? And then hating myself so much that I would run back to doing drugs because I hated myself. It was just this very toxic, horrible cycle. I'm kind of going off topic. I've gone off topic so many times in this video. Yeah, to me, anything was better than my physical reality. I escaped my reality with drugs at school, at home, especially, you know, before I would go to bed. Because going to bed was really hard for me. I had a lot of horrible thoughts, suicidal thoughts. With psychiatry, there were times, like 6 months at a time, where I followed strictly my plan and I did not abuse, and I still was experiencing really bad side effects because of being so disheartened with psychiatry, which is like a whole other video. I was so disheartened with the medication not working for me, making me gain weight, making me sleepy, making me groggy, making me feel heavy. Like, I had so many bad side effects from taking my medications and prescriptions correctly that after a while, I just like started abusing my medication because I knew they did nothing for me. So I've always found a way to escape my reality, whether it was through daydreaming or even before drugs, drinking. Like, I drank a lot. Right now, anyone can tell you I'm not a drinker. I will order lemonade. Like, I literally, I'm not a drinker at all. But at the time, alcohol just made me feel more loose, and I just liked it. I liked being also blackout drunk. Like, I don't know, I just didn't want to be conscious. I didn't want to be me. I didn't want to be here. I've tried like even things I'm like ashamed to say that I've tried, like huffing really fucked up stupid shit, everything I could try. If my friend was like, have you tried this? I'd be like, I'm trying it now. Like, I was just so experimental with things to get out of the world I was in. Weed and benzos made me sleep, made me forget, made me stop crying, made me care less. I also did drugs in school to forget I was in school. I claimed that I was sober at times that I wasn't, and after getting kicked out of school, I started to slow down a bit because I didn't have to worry about school. I didn't have to worry about friendships. I didn't have to worry about, teachers and lunch and like all that stupid shit. So I definitely slowed down a bit after I left school, but I was still, taking Ritalin to work every day. I still was smoking weed, and despite having so many like horrible experiences with drugs, I still craved the feeling of getting out of this world. Even though I had one of the worst experiences ever on ket, I needed a ketamine or benzos or weed or anything else to help me forget that. That was something that was on my mind a lot. When I first moved to Australia, I didn't have a job or anything, and it was my first day there, and I met somebody. I was ready for a fresh start, but the first person I met, he was a big weed smoker. So I got my weed from him. It was the first time I actually recognized how people can get addicted to weed, because I saw him face those side effects, and it was absolutely like heartbreaking some of the times. But he was also really into psychedelics, and when I was in Taiwan, I did do psychedelics like acid and morning glory seeds and mushrooms and all that stuff. This guy helped me, move into a house where acid was very much available anytime I wanted it. So for about 2 years, I was doing acid every weekend, and if I wasn't doing acid, I was doing MDMA, and sometimes I would do both. There were many times where I did it multiple times a week, but it was at least every week, and maybe some of you guys might notice that or not notice that, but those first 2 years in Australia, I was very much in a party stage. I'm not too hard on myself from that time because I made a lot of friends, and I never got into situations where I could have gotten sexually assaulted, or, I've never had moments where my safety was threatened. I did experience some side effects from abusing MDMA, such as having low serotonin levels, but I was never, addicted. I don't think you can be addicted to psychedelics or MDMA. And honestly, with psychedelics, I feel like they helped me more than didn't help me. I feel like they helped me a lot more. But I'm not about to, talk about which drugs are good and which drugs aren't good. But still, I was obviously running from something. I was still hiding from something. I smoked weed every day for years living in Australia. Like 4 years I smoked weed every day, and I just never thought it was bad because everybody in my life smoked weed. My neighbors smoked weed, my coworkers smoke weed. The weed culture over in Perth was so normalized, I didn't think it was an issue. It obviously was. I was spending too much money smoking weed. I used weed to help me sleep, so when I didn't have weed, I couldn't sleep. I used weed to help me eat, and so when I didn't have weed, I wouldn't eat. It really did also fuck up my relationships with people because, especially with partners living with me, when I didn't have bud and I'd be angry or a bit moody, they would just be like, oh my god, Anna, like, you need to have a cone, like, you need to smoke a bowl because you are too much right now, or you need to calm down, or you're too angry, or you're too sensitive, or you can't sleep. Like, it was always just like, how are we gonna help Adam? Anna, I'm gonna pack you a bowl, or Anna, I'm gonna get your bong out. Like, the way that people dealt with my moodiness or me being sad, which are normal emotions, but the way that people dealt with it was, I'm just gonna go buy you some weed. Even with friends, I would, message a friend and be like, oh, I'm feeling really sad, and they would message me and be like, I'm coming over with weed, which was always really nice. But I started to realize that I grew dependent. The biggest issues I've had since I was young was I'm a bit of a control freak. Things have to go my way. I have plan Bs, but I hate going to plan B. If we can stick to plan A, we're sticking to plan A. And before we hit plan B, I'm gonna cry and have a meltdown. But once we get into plan B, I'm fine. But before that, I'm usually crying and I'm stressed and I think the whole world's falling apart. Like, I do have all or nothing thinking, or I did. I think I've done a lot better with that now that I'm sober. We'll get to that. If there's anything I really was addicted to, like the actual word addicted as in experiencing with like not being able to be normal without it, it was weed, which is so sad because I think weed is such a great plant. Weed can help a lot of people de-stress and relax, and like there are a lot of good benefits of weed. But I was just smoking it, like, you know, I wasn't eating it. Eating weed is so much healthier than smoking it. I was abusing it, and I couldn't sleep without it, I couldn't eat, I couldn't function as a normal person without breaking down every minute without it. And I knew it was a problem, and I knew it was a problem for years, actually. It was just so hard for me to stop. I would stop for 3 weeks. From the start of Corona, I told you guys everything about what happened. I moved away, pretty much spent the whole time in quarantine inside my room. That really did help because I didn't smoke from April, May, June, July, August. Like for those 5 months, I did not smoke. Because of that, I'm able to just like live a normal life. Like now I can, you know, have connects here in Brisbane. I can like buy some bud. Once I'm done like smoking, like I'm not like, oh, I can't sleep. Like how am I gonna live my life? Like when I have like a little bit left, I'm not like thinking about everyone I can call who can drop me a sticker, whatever, you know what I mean. I know like 5 months is probably not a big achievement. I know it's not much, but I used to smoke like all the time. Like I worked from home and I smoked every 30 minutes at least. I smoked as soon as I woke up, when I went to bed. I literally would wake up in the middle of the night so I could go smoke. That was the routines I was in, and I'm so glad that I broke out of those routines and now I can have a healthy relationship with a plant that I think is very beneficial for, you know, society. But I'm not at the point where I'm like abusing it and stuck in an addiction. This whole year I haven't had MDMA, I haven't had benzos, like I haven't had any drugs except for weed and mushrooms. And to me that's fine because mushrooms are natural. It's literally a naturally occurring fungus. Weed is natural as well too, and I think those both those substances can do a lot of inner work for you. You know, like Denver and a lot of states in America have legalized, even Canada, pretty much been like decriminalizing mushrooms, and I think it's really good. Like I follow Maps News on Instagram. They basically talk about progresses we make with psychedelics and bringing it into, you know, the medical industry, because I think there's a lot of benefits to that, even MDMA. I still have a lot to learn. You know, for example, Jessica Kent, who's one of my favorite YouTubers, she's been sober for like 11 years or something. Like I don't even know how many years, or 8 years, I don't know. She's been sober for years, and to me that's like such a beautiful achievement, and it makes me almost feel bad to sit here and be like, oh my god, I've been like sober for 5 months, or you know, I've only had like a little bit of weed for 5 months. Like it doesn't sound as great, but I think taking little steps and also making this video to prove to myself that I've come a long way, even though it doesn't feel or look like it. I've definitely come a long way. My drug abuse history really showed the nastiest parts of myself. I definitely did things for drugs that I wouldn't be proud of. I stopped, you know, smoking weed with people because I wanted all of my weed to myself. And over in Perth, like everyone would come to my house to smoke weed, and I just remember like, I just want to keep this to myself. Like I don't want to share it with anybody else. Like this is for me. Like I need this. Like I need this to sleep. I need this to eat. Why should I share it? Like using people so I can get bud, like befriending people because I knew they would give me weed, like thinking some horrible thoughts and being like, oh, I don't even like this person, but they give me weed, so I'm gonna keep them around. Being a drug abuser, I've definitely made some really stupid mistakes, and I've definitely had some ill intentions, just to get my way or just to get what I want. And now that I'm not reliant on anything, except Tiger Balm. I fucking love Tiger Balm. It's not a drug, by the way. It's just like this Asian thing that you like rub on your forehead when you have like a headache, or if you have like sore joints or something, you like rub on you to like wake up in the morning and know that like I don't need to smoke. I don't need something to help me sleep. I don't need anything. Like I just need me. Like I actually like my reality now. Like I like myself, even though I'm like living in a house that's not mine, and I'm staying in a bed that's not mine, and like I don't even have a blanket for myself, and like I'm literally still house hunting, guys, for you guys who are wondering. I'm still so happy in my place of life. Like I feel like even if I was like living in a garage, like I would be still really happy with my mental state. Because I'm not reliant on anything. I don't need anything. I know it's a little bit disheartening because I don't have like a perfect solution for those who are watching this video being like, oh, I'm a drug abuser too, like I want to stop doing that. Because my perfect solution was getting away from everybody, changing my location, changing my room. The reason why it was so easy for me to just quit cold turkey on weed was because I wasn't in my old room. In my old room, I had tapestries of weed leaves. If I went to the backyards, there was bongs, lighters, and rolling papers. Like, all paraphernalia was in my house. So whenever I'd come home, I am seeing all of these paraphernalia, and I'm like, oh my god, I want to smoke. But, like, when I moved and changed location, like, I didn't have an area to smoke. So I didn't crave it. Whenever I would go to Bali, because I go to Bali every year, I'd be able to eat normally. I mean, actually it would take me 2 or 3 days to eat normally, but it's usually fine. And then I wouldn't think about it because I'm in a different country with a different mindset. Like I'm not stuck in my same old loop, and that's what it was. I was just stuck in this repetitive cycle that was really hard to bear. Honestly, if this is gonna motivate you to move house, to get away from those friends who, you know, always smoke around a lot, do it. Like if you are struggling with addiction or drug abuse, to change your environment. I'm gonna quickly mention here this one TED Talk I watched. There's a rat stuck in a cage and it has a bottle of drug water and normal water. The rat keeps drinking the drug water. So what the scientists did, they put the rat in a cage with other rats, with slides, with swings, with toys. They changed the whole environment for this rat. And what they found was that this rat stopped drinking the drug water. They didn't need the drug water anymore because they had other friends to live with. They had toys to play with. They had things to climb. So they stopped drinking the drug water. And what that shows is you gotta change your environment. You gotta add swings and toys, and that's not exactly what it means, but to change your environment, make it a more loving one, to make your home a loving home. You won't keep running to drug water, you know. Anyways, this video has been going on for far too long. I hope one of you guys does relate to this video or does find some help in this video. I'm sorry that I don't really have much of a solution. This was more about opening up. Love you guys all so much. Bye!